Okay, let's unpack this. We often throw around the word icon in the music industry. It gets, plastered on anyone who has a couple of #1 hits or manages to stay famous for more than 5 years.
It's true. It gets a little diluted.
Right. But then you look at the stats we have in front of us today, and you realize there are levels to this game. We are talking about someone who headlined the Super Bowl Elevate halftime show in 2024
Yeah.
and drew in 123 million viewers.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just a staggering number.
It really is. And to put that 123 million into perspective, that is more people than the entire population of most countries.
Wow.
In an era where media is completely fractured, getting 5 million people to watch the same thing is a miracle, he commanded the attention of a huge chunk of the planet.
And what's wild is that he didn't just show up to wave to the crowd or, do a nostalgia lap. He commanded that stage with the same energy he had 30 years ago. He was skating, he was stripping his shirt off, he was singing live.
Exactly. And that performance coincided with the release of his 9th album, Coming Home. But if you look at the trajectory, this isn't just a simple comeback story. This is a story of a guy who has sold over 100 million records worldwide.
100 million.
We are talking about the king of R&B, a savvy business mogul, and the man who, let's not forget, helped discover Justin Bieber. So today we are doing a deep dive into the life and career of Usher Raymond IV.
It is a massive career to cover. We've got extensive biographical data, career stats, and a lot of analysis on his artistry and his business ventures to get through.
Yeah, a lot to cover.
But what's our angle here? Because I don't want to just, read a Wikipedia page out loud. What is the core mission of this deep dive?
The mission is to answer one specific question. How? How does a kid from Chattanooga, Tennessee, navigate the most volatile industry on earth for 3 decades and remain on top? We're looking for the mechanics of his adaptability.
That is the big question. Because think about it. He started in the era of New Jack Swing and cassette tapes. He moved through the CD boom, survived the Napster piracy crisis, which we definitely need to talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
Conquered the digital download era, and is now thriving in the streaming age. He went from R&B to pop to EDM and back again.
And he did all of it while dealing with some incredibly intense personal volatility, divorces, lawsuits, tragedy. But if we want to understand the king of R&B and how he built this kind of armor, we have to go back to the very beginning. And I don't mean the era, I mean the church choir era.
Right, let's go back to the roots. He was born in Dallas in 1978, but raised primarily in Chattanooga, Tennessee. His father left when he was just 1, so he was raised by his mother, Janetta Patton, and his stepfather. And like so many greats, Whitney, Aretha, it all starts in the church.
It does. He joined a youth choir at age 9, and this wasn't just a show up on Sunday kind of thing. His mother was the director. But there's this great detail in the source material about his grandmother, who he called Nanny. She was actually the one who first discovered his singing ability.
It's always the grandmother, isn't it? They have that ear. They just know.
They do. But interestingly, she didn't think he could go professional right away. It wasn't until he joined a local singing group that she realized, okay, this kid has something special.
But his mom, Janetta, she wasn't just a passive observer in all this. She saw the talent and made a huge move, a life-changing move. They moved the family from Tennessee to Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Now, we know Atlanta today as the absolute capital of hip-hop and R&B. But back then, in the early 90s, was it really that established?
It was just bubbling up. It was becoming the place to be, but it wasn't the empire it is now. That move was so strategic. Janetta felt a bigger city would provide a better, more conducive environment for singers. She basically uprooted the family for this dream.
And he attended North Springs High School there. But this is where it gets really interesting for me. At age 12, Usher joins an R&B quintet called New Beginning.
New Beginning.
New Beginning. I love that name. It is so painfully 90s. Please tell me they had matching oversized silk outfits.
Oh, almost certainly. And they were actually doing real work. They recorded an album in 1991. It was available regionally and, get this, by mail order.
A mail order.
Well,
Yeah.
can you imagine? There were probably some rare copies of that floating around that are worth a fortune now. But this brings us to the first really pivotal moment in his career management. His mother, Janetta, pulls him out of the group.
Wait, why? They had an album. They were doing the thing. For a 12-year-old, that's the peak. You've made it.
She called it a bad experience. The sources don't really go into the nitty-gritty of the drama, but she just felt he was better off as a solo artist. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a 13-year-old Usher. He was terrified. He thought that was it. His dream was completely over. He didn't understand that his mother was actually clearing the deck for something much, much bigger. She told him, "Your world is only beginning."
That is some serious foresight. Most parents would just be thrilled their kid has a hobby that keeps them out of trouble. She was playing 4D chess from the start.
Absolutely.
So she pulls him out, and then he hits the talent show circuit. And this leads to Star Search. For those who are too young to remember, Star Search was basically American Idol before American Idol. It was the gatekeeper.
And Usher didn't just compete on the show. He set a record. He held a note for 12 seconds. That is the longest note ever held by a child in the show's history.
12 seconds. Try just holding your breath for 12 seconds while doing anything, let alone projecting a melody to a live audience and a TV crew.
It just shows that the raw instrument was there from the beginning. That kind of breath control at that age is, it's absurd. But the real breakthrough happened because of a connection. He met a guy named A.J. Alexander, who was Bobby Brown's bodyguard at the time.
No way.
Yeah. Alexander gets him an audition with L.A. Reid from LaFace Records.
L.A. Reid, a legend. You can't tell the story of 90s music without him. So Usher walks in, sings Boys the Second, Men's End of the Road, and success.
Reid signs him on the spot. But, and this is a huge but, it was not smooth sailing from there. This is the part of the story that I think really, truly shaped Usher's work ethic. Right after signing, he hits puberty.
Oh, no. The voice change, the enemy of every child star.
And the voice change hit him hard. He lost his voice while he was supposed to be preparing for his debut album. He literally couldn't hit the notes anymore.
Wow.
So L.A. Reid got skeptical. He actually put the album on hold and considered dropping him from the label. Imagine being 14 or 15, you just got signed, you think you've made it, and now the label boss is thinking, maybe this kid is broken.
That is brutal pressure for a kid.
Yeah.
So how did they salvage it? Did they send him to a vocal coach? What happened?
Well, Reid didn't really know what to do with him while his voice was settling, so he made a pretty radical decision. He sent him to something called Flavor Camp.
Flavor Camp? Please explain. That sounds like a reality TV show.
It was real life. He sent Usher to New York City to live with Sean Puffy Combs Diddy. This was 1994. The bad boy era was just exploding.
Wait. He sent a teenager to live with Diddy in 1994. That sounds
yeah.
intense. What was the actual goal there? Was Diddy supposed to teach him how to sing?
No, and that's the key distinction. Usher already knew how to sing. The choir taught him that. Diddy was there to teach him how to be a star.
Oh, okay.
This is the era of bad boy records. It's all about flash, it's arrogance, it's streetwear, it's a lifestyle. Usher described it as a total culture shock. He wasn't just observing, he was embedded in it. He had to wake up early, do chores, but also navigate this incredibly adult, high-stakes hip-hop world.
So it was essentially a boot camp for swagger.
Precisely. He called it the hardest days of his life because he had to shed that polite Southern skin and develop a real edge. He had to learn how to walk into a room and command it before he even opened his mouth.
Right.
Without Flavor Camp, I don't think you get the Usher we know today. You might get a great vocalist, but you don't get the icon.
That makes so much sense. He had the church vocals, but he needed the New York attitude. So he comes back from camp, and they finally released the debut album, simply titled Usher, in 1994. Executive produced by Combs. Did it work?
It was complicated. He was 15 years old, but the songs were explicitly about sex.
Yeah, that's a tough sell. I'm 15, let me tell you about the bedroom. It's just not going to fly.
Exactly. The public had a really hard time believing it. It felt inauthentic. It sold about 500,000 copies, which is gold, not bad at all. But it wasn't the blockbuster that LaFace had hoped for. It received backlash. People were like, why is this child singing these lyrics?
Right.
But it set the stage. He had the voice, he had the flavor from the Diddy camp, but he needed the right sound. He needed to find his own lane.
And enter Jermaine Dupri.
This is the partnership that changes everything. For his second album, My Way, released in 1997, he links up with Dupri, and suddenly it just clicks.
Right.
You Make Me Wanna hits #1 in the UK. Nice and Slow becomes his first U.S. Billboard Hot 100 #1.
Nice and Slow is a classic, an absolute classic. And My Way went 7x platinum. That is a massive jump from the debut. So what did Dupri bring to the table that Diddy didn't?
Dupree understood Atlanta, he understood the bounce, the rhythm of the South. He grounded Usher in a sound that was smoother, more melodic, and honestly, it just fit his voice better. It felt authentic to who he was at that age.
And the timing was perfect, late 90s. Usher is also pivoting to acting. He's on Moshe, he's in The Faculty, she's all that. He was establishing himself as a multimedia threat. He wasn't just a singer, he was a teen heartthrob who could act.
He was everywhere.
I remember in The Faculty he was great, but
Nice.
musically he was heading toward an even bigger peak. We get to the 8701 era. Now, I read in the notes that this album had a bit of a drama with the release, something about a leak.
It was a massive drama. The album was originally titled All About You, but this was the early 2000s, the dawn of the internet leak.
Napster, the Wild West.
Napster, exactly. And multiple tracks got out on Napster and radio before the album was even finished. Now, for the younger listeners, you have to understand the mechanics of 2001. Today, if a song leaks, an artist might just drop it on Spotify the next day to capitalize on the buzz.
Right, you lean into it.
You lean into it. But back then, the entire industry relied on physical CD sales. A leak was a potential death sentence. It meant people had the music, but the stores didn't have the discs yet.
So the demand is there, but the supply chain isn't ready. You can't monetize it.
Exactly. So Usher and his team did something very smart and very risky. They delayed the album, they scrapped a bunch of the leaked tracks, they went back into the studio and retooled the whole project.
Wow.
And then they renamed it 8701 because it was released on August 7th, 2001.
That is a clever pivot. It's like saying, you stole the old version. Fine. The real version is coming later, and it's even better. And it gave us You Remind Me, and You Got It Bad.
Both #1 hits. And this is where the critical acclaim really starts to match the commercial sales. He won consecutive Grammys for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance in 2002 and 2003.
That's a huge deal.
It is. The only other artists to ever do that were Luther Vandross and Stevie Wonder.
That is elite company. That's not just pop star territory. That is vocal legend territory.
It solidified him as a vocalist, not just a performer. But speaking of performance, 8701 is where the Michael Jackson comparisons stopped being just hype and started feeling real. He was singing and dancing simultaneously at a level nobody else was even touching at that time.
We see people dance now, but usually they are lip syncing or they have a heavy backing track doing most of the vocal work. Usher was doing full choreography and hitting every single note.
Precisely. He was filling the void that MJ left. But if 8701 was him becoming a superstar, the next phase was him becoming, well, a legend. We have to talk about Confessions.
Confessions. 2004. This is the magnum opus.
Yeah.
The numbers alone are just mind-boggling. 1.1 million copies sold in the first week. Diamond certification. That's over 10 million sales in the U.S. alone.
It's the highest first-week sales number ever for a male R&B artist. And frankly, with the way streaming works now, we will probably never see a male R&B artist hit 1.1 million pure sales in a week ever again.
It's just not possible.
But
We have to talk about why it sold like that. It wasn't just the music, it was the narrative. The album was driven by these songs about infidelity, having a mistress, getting that mistress pregnant, Confessions Part 2.
the drama.
Well, the drama was everything.
Everyone assumed this was Usher confessing to cheating on Chili's from TLC, right? That was the story.
That was absolutely the assumption, and it fueled the sales fire. It was the main topic of conversation on every radio station, every TV show in America. But here is the deep dive reality check. The stories were largely fiction. What do you mean?
Or rather, they were inspired by Jermaine Dupri's personal life, not Usher's.
Okay, hold on. Confessions Part 2. This is the song where he admits to getting his mistress pregnant while his girl is at home. At the time, everyone thought this was him confessing. But you're telling me that was all smoke and mirrors?
Yeah.
Because that feels a little manipulative, doesn't it? Leveraging your real-life breakup to sell records based on a lie.
It feels manipulative because it was manipulative, and it was brilliant marketing. Dupree and Usher made a calculated decision not to correct the record. They monetized the ambiguity.
Wow.
Dupree knew that if people thought they were getting a voyeuristic look into Usher's real-life tragedy, they would buy the album. He basically admitted it later. He said he saw the public chatter and told Usher, "We're not going to say anything."
So they just let the audience believe the lie.
They let them run with it, exactly. Chilli even clarified later on the radio that Usher never cheated on her, despite the lyrics, but at the time. The ambiguity was worth millions. You don't sell 1.1 million copies in a week just on catchy melodies. You sell them on gossip and narrative.
That is genius, devious, and incredibly effective. And the singles run from that album. I mean, yeah, Lil Jon and Ludacris, Burn. Confessions Part 2, My Boo with Alicia Keys.
All number ones. In the year 2004, Usher spent 28 weeks at number one on the Hot 100.
28 weeks. That's more than half the year.
More than half the year. And he became the first artist since the Beatles to have two singles occupy the top two spots on the year-end Hot 100 chart.
Really?
It was number one for the year, and Burn was number two.
That is just total dominance. Critics called it the thriller of our generation.
And in terms of commercial impact, they aren't wrong. It might have been the last true blockbuster in pop music before the industry completely fractured into streaming. It was an event album that everyone, regardless of genre preference, bought. Your mom bought it, the club DJ bought it, the hip-hop heads bought it.
So you reach the absolute top of the mountain. Diamond album. A shelf full of Grammys. Where do you possibly go from there? This brings us to his reinvention phase, because he didn't just keep making confessions over and over again.
No, and that's the key to his longevity. And this is where that theme of adaptability really kicks in. He released Here I Stand in 2008, which was a much more mature album. He had married Tamika Foster. He fired his mom as his manager. It was a really transitional time for him.
Right.
But then came Raymond v. Raymond in 2010.
This was a divorce album, right?
In a way, he was dealing with his newly single status.
Yeah.
But musically, this is where he starts charging headfirst into what he called revolutionary pop. Just look at OMG with will.i.am.
That song was everywhere. I mean, you couldn't escape it.
Yeah.
But I remember at the time, R&B purists hated it. They absolutely hated it. It was auto-tuned. It was a fist-pumping club track. It sounded nothing like Burn.
You're right, the purists hated it. But Usher read the room. R&B was taking a backseat on top 40 radio, and EDM, electronic dance music, was taking over everything.
Right, that was the big sound.
If he had stayed in his lane, he might have faded. Instead, he jumped lanes. OMG made him one of the very few artists to top the Hot 100 in the 90s, the 2000s, and the 10s.
So he risked alienating his core base to gain the globe.
And it worked. Then you have Looking for Myself in 2012, where he worked with Diplo on the song Climax.
Climax is such a fascinating track. It's the opposite of OMG. It doesn't have a big drop. It's quiet, it's all falsetto, it's electronic, but it's incredibly soulful.
And critics hailed it as one of his best vocal performances ever. It showed he wasn't just chasing trends, he was blending his R&B roots with electronic music in a way that felt sophisticated and new. He proved he could do the cool indie electronic thing just as well as the pop blockbuster thing.
And while he's dominating the charts, he's also making these huge moves behind the scenes. We have to talk about Usher the Mogul, because I think people forget he discovered Justin Bieber.
This is arguably one of the most profitable discoveries in music history, but the real deep dive takeaway here isn't just that he found Bieber, it's how he structured the deal.
Right, because usually an artist just gets a finder's fee, right? Thanks for the tip, here's 50 grand.
Exactly. But Usher didn't settle for that. He co-founded a whole new company, Raymond Braun Media Group-RBMG, with Scooter Braun specifically for this purpose.
So he didn't just introduce Bieber to a label.
No, he became a partner. By creating a joint venture, he ensured he was a part owner of the entire Justin Bieber enterprise. Think about the revenue streams involved there: touring, merchandise, licensing, publishing.
What do you think?
By positioning himself as an owner rather than just a mentor or a producer, he secured a passive income stream that likely rivals his own music royalties.
That is a masterclass in leverage. He used his credibility to launch the product Bieber, but kept a stake in the IPO, essentially.
A perfect analogy. And he didn't stop there. In 2005, he was part of a group that bought the Cleveland Cavaliers for $375 million.
Is that just a vanity project? Like, I want to sit courtside and own the team. Or is there more to it?
It creates a different level of access. Being a celebrity gets you into the VIP section. Being an owner gets you into the boardroom with billionaires. He became only the third pop artist to own a large stake in an NBA team. And when the Cavs won the championship in 2016,
He got a ring.
Usher got a ring.
That is a flex.
Yeah.
I got Grammys and an NBA championship ring.
Exactly. And he's invested in Tidal. He has successful fragrance lines. He's invested in tech and catering startups. He understands that fame is fleeting, but equity is forever.
He also has a strong philanthropic side. His foundation, Usher's New Look, has been around since 1999.
And it's really impressive. It focuses on education and real-world experience for youth. They boast a 100% graduation rate for participants who go through their program. It circles back to his own youth. He understands that mentorship matters.
And he's been active politically, campaigning for Obama and addressing social justice issues with projects like his interactive video chains, which dealt with racial profiling. So he's not just Mr. Entertainment, he's engaged with the world around him.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to the recent era. A few years ago, I think people might have thought Usher was winding down, maybe heading for that legacy act status where you just play the state fairs every summer. But then he hits Las Vegas.
The residency model has completely changed, and Usher is a big part of why. It used to be where careers went to die, where you went when you couldn't tour the world anymore. Usher flipped that script. He started at Caesars Palace in 2021, then moved to Park MGM. These shows were massive, massive successes.
I saw the clips all over social media. It looked like a party. It wasn't just a concert. It felt like an immersive experience.
He reminded everyone that he can still dance and sing live at an absolutely elite level. In an era where so many performers are kind of low energy, he brought the spectacle. And that momentum, that buzz, led directly to the Super Bowl.
It was the perfect storm, really. The residencies proved he was still a top-tier performer. The Super Bowl gave him the biggest platform in the world. And he used it to launch his new album, Coming Home. He described the Super Bowl as the honor of a lifetime.
But it hasn't all been smooth sailing personally. We mentioned the volatility earlier, and it's been significant.
Yeah, we have to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
His personal life has been messy.
It has, and it's important to acknowledge that because it highlights his resilience. He's been through very public divorces with Tamika Foster, with Grace Miguel. He's now married to Jen Goycochea. But there have been real tragedies. His stepson, Kill Glover, passed away in a tragic accident.
That was awful.
And his eldest son, Usher V, nearly drowned in a pool drain accident back in 2013.
I remember that story. He jumped in to save him, but the boy was stuck in the drain. It was just terrifying.
And it led to a very public custody hearing right after. The media was scrutinizing his parenting while he was dealing with this near tragedy. Then, of course, there were the herpes lawsuits in 2017.
Right.
He was sued by 3 different claimants. It was a media frenzy. One case was eventually dismissed. One accuser admitted to testing negative. It was a messy, ugly period for him publicly.
For a lot of artists, that kind of scandal, the lawsuits, the tabloid fodder, would be a career ender. Or at the very least, it would permanently taint their brand.
Yeah.
How did he survive it?
He kept the focus on the work. He didn't go on a Twitter rant. He didn't do a tell-all interview crying about it. He went to Vegas and he performed. He let the art speak louder than all the noise. And that is a very, very difficult discipline to maintain, but he did it.
He really does seem Teflon in that way. And the work does speak for itself. We keep talking about his voice, but let's get technical for a second. The notes say he is a leggero tenor. What does that actually mean for us non-singers?
A leggero tenor is basically a light, agile tenor voice. It means he has the high range of a tenor, but with a lot of flexibility and speed. His range spans 3 octaves and 4 notes. It allows him to do those rapid-fire runs, think of the end of Confessions Part 2, but also hit those high, soft falsetto notes you hear in climax.
So it's a voice that's built for both power and speed.
Exactly. And when you combine that instrument with his dance ability, which is heavily influenced by Michael Jackson, Prince, Bobby Brown, you have a weapon that very, very few people in history possess.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just look at the scoreboard again.
It's pretty incredible. 8 Grammys, 18 Billboard Music Awards, 9 #1 singles on the Hot 100. He was named the #1 Hot 100 artist of the entire 2000s decade.
The whole decade.
The whole decade. And again, he's one of the only artists to have a #1 single in the 90s, the dollars, and the tens, alongside legends like Madonna and Janet Jackson.
That is wild. That longevity is the real story here. It's the through line for everything.
It really is. He's Mr. Entertainment. His legacy is secure, not just because he sold records, but because he adapted. When the world wanted R&B ballads, he gave them Nice and Slow.
Yeah.
When they wanted drama, he gave them Confessions. When they wanted club bangers, he gave them, an OMG.
He read the room every single time.
Yeah.
For 30 years.
Precisely.
So here's a provocative thought to leave you with. We look at Usher's influence, Justin Bieber, Chris Brown, Drake, they all cite him. He created this blueprint of the singing, dancing heartthrob who can cross over into global pop. But looking at the fractured music landscape today where everyone is in their own niche, is Usher the last true pop blockbuster star? Or has he created a code that modern artists are still trying to crack but just haven't figured out yet?
That is the question. We haven't seen a Confessions-level moment, a moment where the entire world stopped to listen to one album in a very long time. It might just be that the era that created Usher is gone for good, which makes his survival even more impressive.
Something to think about. That's it for this deep dive into the world of Usher. Thanks for listening.
Keep listening.